Look, I think some of those lessons have been that we need to sharpen our focus on results. I mean, what is happening in GPE is really a subset of the broader global debate that in education, counting access statistics is important. We've got 57 million kids still out of school, many of them girls, so we've still got to be counting access. But as we do that, we increasingly want to also monitor quality of learning. So are kids sitting in school and actually learning? All of that combined with Alice Albright's leadership as CEO of the Global Partnership for Education means going forward we'll have a results-based financing model. Step one, to get to sit at the table, developing country partners will need to be increasing their domestic education expenditure as donor funds are made available. Step two, they've got to have a robust education plan that deals with inclusion, you know, the girls, the kids with disabilities, the kids in the country, the kids from ethnic groups who may be the subject of persecution in an individual country. They've got to have that plan right. It's got to be a plan too about the quality of learning. It's got to have some measures of success, and then 30% of the funding made available is then at risk depending on whether or not those measures of success are achieved. Now, there will be some incredibly fragile countries where that isn't an appropriate model, but overwhelmingly it's that kind of results-based financing with at-risk funds which will be the way that GPE goes about its work with the funds from this replenishment conference. I think the challenge is too big to turn your back on any individual mechanism, but in my observation, most of the debate about scholarships tends to come at the later stages of education, so the vocational education and training stage, or even more commonly at the university stage. And you know, Australia itself is a big provider of scholarships and was when I was Prime Minister, and has continued to be a big provider of those kinds of scholarships. But you only get there if kids have had the opportunity to come through the education journey as we understand it, you know, preschool, primary school, secondary education, and then the ability to go on. If we aren't getting those things right, then scholarships will only be picking up a very limited section of the population because most will have been excluded so much earlier on. GPE, you know, as an organisation, we're still discussing the post-2015 agenda. My own view is, though, that we do need to have targets for domestic financing, and you would see from the way that GPE is working at this replenishment conference that one of the big things coming out of it is the preparedness of our developing country partners to step forward and to put more money into domestic financing. Coming here to Brussels for replenishment, we did say people should aim for 20% of their general government budget going to education. Now, UNESCO is formulating targets in different ways, whether it's a percentage of GDP or a percentage of government expenditure. It's all trying to get to the same outcome, which is more financing being mobilised by developing country partners from their own domestic resources. In developing countries, clearly there's a lot of competition for funds. I mean, I know what it's like to sit round a cabinet table and to have various competing priorities, education, health, disability, you know, defence, security spends, all of the things that government does, support for families, and to have to make the difficult choices that budgets necessarily impose on you. I think developed countries struggle with those choices. Increasingly though, and I think we're seeing that from this replenishment conference, developing countries are working through that the long-term strategy for prosperity, peace and stability is about investing in education. I think many have been very focused on the healthcare expenditure, which is understandable, but if they're going to make, and increasingly I think this is what they're talking about, a long-term change for their country, have it and its citizens take their full place in the global economy and global community, then education is the key to that.